Hello and welcome my partners in crime, and welcome to another. This, I think it's the fourth one or the third one, I can't remember now. It's been a while since we've done these murder mornings, but it's, you know, it's really, I think, a really good part of it, because one, I can look through your you know, comments and stuff like that, and there's been loads, and I try and put them all together and try and answer some of the questions in one big bulk. So you know, of course we've had so much, haven't we, come back on you know, Colin Pitchfork's case, you know, otherwise known now as David Thorpe, and maybe even known as something else, and a lot of the questions on indecent exposure and stuff like that, and how he got away with it and different things. There's a few questions about him. There is also now, as I said before, I'm going to bring up about this Wayne Couzens, and also how this relates now also into our society at the moment, where we've had so many indecent exposure cases coming up, and this has been really highlighted since the murder of Sarah Everard. And of course, and we all know now who murdered her was a serving Met police officer. So there's a lot we're going to discuss a lot about that. I think with the other ones, you know, the updates, it's with Terry and that's passed away, and yes, it was very, very sad. And Stephen Port's case is an ongoing, because the inquest is ongoing, so it's sort of be general updates on him. There's nothing really much this week that's come up a bit against him. And also the Clydic murders, that was where Di Morris had died in prison, so that was the updates. But today I really want to focus on the questions and your comments that you've made in relation to the Pitchfork case and you know, the murder of Sarah Everard's case. Next week, if you want to start getting your questions ready, that we're going to talk about the disappearance or the unsolved cases. There's a lot of them, but the unsolved cases in this case that we're going to really probably discuss and have questions on and stuff like that are Lee Boxell case, and then I think the case that I'm going to release out this Friday, tomorrow, which is the Kevin Hicks case, and that's also included in that is Reece Colin's case, and then in relation to all that, where they're all linked together with Lee Boxell's case. So that's sort of for next week. So this week we're just going to really concentrate on Pitchfork and Couzens, and them sort of things, the things around the Met Police and the new advice that the Met Police has brought out and all that. So thank you for joining me this week. Let's get on with it and let's see what you've actually said in your comments. And as I said, I cannot answer every single comment. I can't respond to every single comment in this murder mornings, but what I've done is generalised all the questions, and as you can see, I'm on my own because I have seen Taylor today, and Taylor has a new flat and everything else, so love her. She's really busy with that, but also, you know, you can't feel too sorry for her because she's off to Santorini this weekend, so that's why she's not here today. And so I'm on my own, so I'm actually going to have to look for someone else, I think, to do murder mornings with me, because I do like to have two people with this, because it's difficult to go through the questions and stuff, so I've sort of generalised all the questions for you. Also, lovely to see my nephew on there, Connor, and hello Connor, because he really watches this channel and supported this channel, as had many of you in the year that we've been going. So thank you to all the members that have been with me right from the beginning. I really appreciate it, and I think we're nearly up to about 11,600 now as today, and we are continuing to go up as we produce more and more cases. Plus I've also started, as you can see if you're with me on Facebook, that I've also started to do clips of the videos on Facebook, so it's not just the thumbnail and it's not just about the writing. I take some clips out the video, and I've started to do that, and I think that's actually going really well. The other thing is, you know, I'm still learning, okay? I still do all my own editing, so I do everything really, and so I'm still learning this Premiere Pro and all this stuff, and there's probably loads on there that I need to do and I don't do, so bear with me for that. It will only ever get better. So let's go for this. Let's start with the first question. Loads of you said about him exposing himself to over 1,000 women. Now listen, when I first researched this case, a good few years ago, I first researched this case and then went back over it and back over it until I then done the video and then everything else. I actually think I made a mistake, and I think actually in that video I think I said 100 at the time, because I actually think that I think that I thought they'd made a mistake when they wrote that he himself had said that he had exposed himself, you know, to over 1,000 women. That is actually true. You know, it wasn't a misprint. It wasn't something, you know, even though I thought it was at first, it was not. You know, he, Pitchfork has said himself, over 1,000 women, and he'd been doing indecent exposure for a very, very long time. Now, when I spoke about indecent exposure within the video of Pitchfork and stuff, you know, it's a really important part of this case. Of any case, when anybody does anything like indecent exposure, it's really important that the police take it really seriously very early on. Now listen, when I was young, and you know, I'm quite old, and you know, we had Benny Hill and all this sort of stuff, and he used to, you know, run around. I don't know if you ever, a lot of the younger ones wouldn't know anything about Benny Hill, but years ago, he was a comedian. He used to have little clips on his show, and he used to run around flashing himself to women as a joke. And I think this is in our society is what's given us this impression that it's okay to, you know, expose yourself to women. It's not, right? It's really not. And then in this case, it's like a lot of people on the questions have said, how did you get away with it so long? Well, really, it wasn't a criminal offence, I think, until 2003. Not really. So, and I, as I said, I think it's in our psyche, isn't it? Is it that, you know, I am brought up with things like Benny Hill. I've never been flashed at personally. Well, yes and no. You know, would I be afraid of someone indecent exposing themselves to me? I would be shocked. I'd be horrified. But you know, and I think it depends in which context the person was doing it as well, right? To someone like me, I'm an older person who, you know, has lived a bit of life and, you know, does these cases all day long. But I would be concerned, and I would report it, absolutely. Because if a person is doing this sort of a crime to you, there's a reason behind it. There's a reason. It's not just because he thinks it's a joke, right? He wants to shock you. He wants to have power over you. And I've said this before, you know, this flashing where he's showing his genitals and all this at you, it's telling you, he's telling you, I'm more powerful than you sexually. I'm in control. I'm shocking you. I'm making you feel uncomfortable. And that's not right. So if anyone, because, you know, and there's been loads of them, we'll go through the statistics in a little while, and just last year, has been flashed or indecently exposed, however you want to call it, you must report it. I wouldn't say respond to these people in any way. I would just ignore and walk off if you can. I wouldn't respond to them. I know some people do, and some people, because sometimes it's such a shock, it's that what comes out of your mouth at the time. You literally calling them everything. That could be me. You know, if they took me really by surprise. But I would suggest that you would just carry on and try and walk away and get away from that situation, because people like Colin Pitchfork are dangerous individuals. Now, we don't know if Colin Pitchfork had done anything before. We just don't know, right? When it comes to murder, we don't know. Until the two girls that he murdered, we just don't know. But it's sometimes it's an escalation from one thing to another, but sometimes it's something that's done in between other crimes that they have undertaken. So you don't know. You don't know. what these people are really like, right? So with Colin Pitchfork, he was charged with 2 murders, and he was not charged with indecent exposure of over 1,000 women, because at the time he was doing it, it wasn't actually an offence to do it. Nowadays he would have been, right? So in the UK, the law is, and it's under a Sexual Offences Act 2003, it's indecent exposure is outlined as an intentionally showing of your genitals in a public area in order to cause alarm or distress. Indecent exposure is categorised as a crime or a specific intent. This means that in cases where someone's genitals are exposed, it must be done with the intention. For example, the offence would not have been committed if someone was simply urinating in a public place, even though that is an offence, comes under something different, but it wouldn't be indecent exposure, because the motive for that person to urinate, wouldn't be to alarm or cause distress. It would be to relieve himself. He should have known better, and there is other offences that will deal with that crime, but it wouldn't be classed as indecent exposure. So, but that's what it is. It's about, and this is where the law gets quite tight on this, because sometimes, men or women do have to relieve themselves, and if everyone was being done, because when you have this on your record now, indecent exposure, it can be quite a big thing, okay, and it does hold a prison sentence, really, as well. So you can't just put people in prison because they really was desperate for a wee, and they've been seen, having a wee, and they've been done then for indecent exposure. So it has to be to cause alarm or distress in the person that they are doing it to. Now, there's things in the law called, aggravated factors, right, for the offence of indecent exposure in the UK. Now, these are threatening to prevent a victim from reporting the crime. So, as I said, you're trying to walk away or on your phone ringing the police, and the perpetrator who is exposing himself to you then tries to stop you ringing the police. That's an aggravating factor. Intimidating or threatening behaviour, as well as the indecent exposure itself. A victim who is under 18, because if you're under 18, you are a child in the eyes of this law. Lot different then. And the sustained course of this behaviour. So how long it went on for. How many times. Now, Colin Pitchfork would be in a lot of trouble if he was, indecent exposing himself over 1,000 times. And I think the final one has to be when they are targeting someone. So if you're indecent exposing yourself to people that are maybe vulnerable, people that are, can't really defend themselves, can't walk away, can't look away, right? There's more, that's an aggravating factor, and that then makes that really a lot different. So what are the sentences and guidelines for this indecent exposure today in the UK, not in the 80s when he was going around doing it? So the offence for indecent exposure carries a maximum penalty of 2 years. That would be per exposure, really. Hopefully the judge would see it that way. However, depending on the specific circumstances of the case, many offenders are given community orders instead, which does make them then subject to the sexual offences notification requirements, otherwise known as the Sexual Offenders Register. So if you are indecent exposing yourself and you are caught and you are then given a penalty of 2 years, or then you are, rather than doing that, then you will be placed not only on, community orders and stuff like that to help in the community, you will be then put on the Sex Offenders Register. This now is what should have happened to Wayne Couzens. Now remember that, because Wayne Couzens, the murderer of Sarah Everard, was doing indecent exposure before, and a few days before he murdered Sarah. So remember that as we talk about this, indecent exposure and the seriousness of it. So can you just get a caution for indecent exposure? And a lot of people have asked that. Is it just, right, going in seriously? No. Sometimes, right, they may say, oh, they've been caught, and it's like, oh, sorry, I was having a wee, or I didn't mean to, And so the police may think, okay, there's not enough evidence to charge them with indecent exposure, but so they caution them, and if then they do it again, then crime will come back. That charge will then come back, and then this is, and as I said, there can't be any aggravating circumstances or factors that then come into that. That's when a caution is given, I think if anyone is charged, even with now, because today at this present time, indecent exposure is big news, all right, and it is going to be hot on the police's list, really, now. So if you are charged with indecent exposure and it is your first time, I would suggest you get a solicitor now, and at the first instance now, because even if it was a mistake, you're now going to have to really prove that it was a mistake, because the police and society as we see it at the moment is probably not going to let you get away with it anymore. So there's that. So do you have to sign the sex offenders register? We talked about that. In certain circumstances, yes, you do. You could, it depending on, I think, how many times, would I have said that Colin Pitchfork would have had to sign a sex offenders register? Absolutely. Just for literally for the amount of indecent exposure that he did. Absolutely. But that's not always the case, and it's probably done, if you hit one of them aggravating factors, then absolutely you will probably be on the sex offenders register, but not maybe for the whole 10 years or lifetime. It may be a year or two. It will depend on each case. But yes, and let me tell you now is that if you're on that sex offenders register, that will then affect the rest of your life anyway. So I think in this country we've got to get really serious on offences against women. We have to get really serious on offences like this, indecent exposure. We have to try and change our mindset to what we think about indecent exposure. It is not a joke. It is a criminal offence under the law. It damages people, and it is one of the triggers, I think, or you can see this now in many of these serial killers and killers that have exposed themselves or done indecent exposure before and during, and in the time or gaps when they haven't murdered, they have indecently exposed themselves to women. Now, we have had many streakers, on our football pitches, this, that and the other, and of women. So listen, it is not an offence to be naked in public in England, right? Not a specific offence, but as I keep saying to you, the law is not straightforward. There is no straight line with the law in England and Wales, but it does become an offence if it can be proved that the person who was stripped off was the intention to upset or shock. Right? If that was their intention, to shock and upset people, to set alarms off really in people, then that becomes under the law, and that is indecent exposure. So the law, as I said, fickle, isn't it, the law? It's never straightforward, and this would be the same in other countries, including America, because you can't have static laws. You have to have laws that flow, so you can, use the law in a certain way to cover everything, or else statutes would be absolutely massive. So the law is down to interpretation. That's what it's down to. And you have statutory interpretation, and that's really what it's all about. So we have laws, and I think society nowadays, as it was different in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, now Indecent exposure would not be acceptable in our society. It would not. Okay, question 2. And I laughed at myself because I read this question and it was coming up a lot, this question. Why did the parole board let Pitchfork out after he'd murdered 2 girls? It's hard to answer, isn't it, really, that question? Because I wasn't on the parole board, because if I was, he wouldn't have got out. But, you know, could I just give a straight out answer? They're wankers and they don't know what they're doing, and they have took no account of the families involved in these murders. They took no account of how the public may feel about what's going on. I don't think they've got any understanding of how the public has changed in this time and how we feel about murderers who has murdered 2 15-year-olds. A murderer that has murdered 2 15-year-olds by rape and murder has been let out. I don't know. And if I could answer that question, I think if anyone could answer that question with any clarity, good for them. But I certainly can't, because I just don't bloody understand it. I think we live in England, which tries to be this politically correct, you know, oh, he's, you know, changed. Listen, I've said in the case, there was no women in prison for him to expose himself to. There was no women in the prison, young girls, 15-year-olds, for him to get hold of and rape. So in them circumstances, anyone can look like they've reformed, can't they? He kept himself to himself. He had 3 meals a day. He was protected by the guards. He was a, you know, exemplary, you know, member of the community in the prison for the years he was in there. Well, that's because he didn't want to be murdered by other prisoners for what he had done. That's why he was exemplary. All right, that's it. That's it. And then I've had some questions. Well, how do you know he hasn't shown remorse? Well, because he didn't. He's never shown any remorse. He said he killed the girls because they screamed, wanted to shut them up. He could have raped and left them. Right? All right, rape's terrible. But they could have had a life. These kids were 15. 15. This man has never shown any remorse for his crimes at all. Now, I wasn't in the room. I can tell you now, the police officers and the other people that were in them, even the guards in this prison, this man has never shown remorse. It's not me saying this. I don't make these things up. Right? This is what people have wrote that know him, that's seen him, that's been in these parole boards. They know. I mean, does it really make any difference if the man bloody had remorse anyway, really, for what he's done? He's took the lives, willingly took lives of 2 children. Children, 15-year-olds, innocent girls, had the whole life to live ahead of him. So who cares if he showed remorse or not? What difference would it have made? These girls are never coming back. This family's never getting their kids back. This family's had to live with this, their deaths, all their life. They're the ones that's got a life sentence here. He should have got a life sentence and he's been let out. They've let him out. I've got no like at all for the parole board in this country. I mean, if you watched a lot of my videos, you'll know I slate them left, right and centre. And you know, I'm bloody justified, I think, by my reasoning with this parole board. I really am. I really am. Do I think remorse though has got anything to do with it? No. No. And at the moment, right, let's go back now to the next question, is that we all know, or people have said he's in Portsmouth, he's here, he's there. I heard that he was now not there because he has been moved because of vigilante groups. Now, there's not vigilante groups from anyone that we've done anything about. This is because he's been put in a, prison sort of hostel, which gets him, back into the public, right? So he can be monitored and watched. I think when Colin Pitchfork, or, whatever he wants to call his name, David Falk, or whatever he's calling himself now, thought that coming out of prison, right? These people fight to come out of prison. He chose to go to the parole board and fight to get out. But what they don't realise, these prisoners, is, especially ones that do murders like this, is when you are released out, You're released out many, many years later into a society that has changed. We are now digital. Everything is online. We know everything about everybody. And they don't seem to get this. They think they can come out of prison and just be left alone to do what they want to do. Listen, human beings don't work like that. Actually, I think, we're quite an aggressive society, really. And so it's really important that I think these criminals understand that when they're going to these parole boards. What do they expect when they come out? The police cannot protect them 24 hours a day. They can't. They really can't. Now, the worry about Pitchfork in these places is that now he would be under tremendous stress. Okay? Tremendous stress. One, because the stress of living out in 2021 in a world that hates you and it doesn't want you in it, really, right? That's one stress. The other stress is you've now got to live out. You haven't got that protection of what you had for all them years in prison. Now, the problem is with stress, it's a trigger. It's one of the triggers. And a lot of these, murderers are triggered by stress. So if Colin Pitchfork or David Falk, whatever he's called, is under that much stress, it may trigger him to do something else. So that's why I would never say if I knew where he was. And as I said to you before, I don't care as long as he is being managed and he cannot get close to any children. Do I believe that out there he can be managed? No. But it is a worry that now that this man is under this tremendous stress. Listen, the local authority is going to have to house him somewhere, his own flat or something to keep this man safe. They're going to have to do something. Listen, I don't think this is the last we've heard of this man at all. I really don't. And do I think that he may have felt that coming out of prison now wasn't really the best thing for his safety? I think that might be true. And so maybe he might do something smaller, not as serious as murder, to be placed back in prison. I think that's an option for him at the moment. But we will have to wait and see. So that's my feelings. And as you know, I've got a lot of feelings on this man, and none of them are nice. None of them are nice. So anyway, I want to go back now just about this indecent exposure, and this is now, as we come in now, forget Colin, let's now move on to Sarah Everard's case and Wayne Couzens. Now, police logged over 10,000 indecent exposure cases. Fewer than 600 of them reached the court. Now, this is England and Wales figures. There's like an epidemic of flashing going on now. Is it to do with stress? We've had a lockdown, we've had people lose their jobs, we've had this, that and the other. Abuses against children have gone up by loads, thousands of %. Domestic violence has gone up, everything's gone up. So why wouldn't we think that flashing or indecent images would have gone up? It's gone up a lot, which is a real worry, isn't it? Because when we think that might be an escalation to something else that, more serious down the line, or is it something that maybe that these predators do in between these crimes because they can't get to people? Do you see what I mean? It's a really big problem here. Now, so there was allegations, and I've said against Wayne Couzens, I think right back from 2013, 2015, but also way back further than that, when he was in his 20s. He was seeing or had a relationship with a 14-year-old, a long term. So you can see, there's things with this man. A few days before, I think he was arrested, he had some things at McDonald's where he'd exposed himself. I think on one of the exposures that he did in 2015 was he was driving naked from the waist down. Now, what did he do? Did he get in his car dressed? right? So he's left home. See you later, love. I'm going to work, because this man was married with 2 kids, right? So he's got in his car. What's he drove around the corner, took his clothes off, the bottom half. This is a serving police officer, and driving along. I mean, all right. You couldn't see everything, which is just in a standard cop. You could see, you know, if you're in a bus or you're in something, or, you know, a little bit higher up, a lorry or whatever, you're sitting there driving naked from the waist down. Now, you know, this is a strange one, isn't it? Really. Listen, this man should have been looked at for this. It should have been. Anyway, so all these findings come out after Wayne Couzens was reported for repeated instances of alleged, got to say alleged, indecent exposure in the years and days before he raped and murdered Sarah Everard, right? So this is now the figures that are coming out. I don't know why now it's only took them figures to come out, because people are looking now. People are saying, hang on a minute, what's going on? And this is what's going on. Now, police said they may have accepted that there may have been, or they may have had enough evidence or enough clues to identify the police officer as he was a threat to women sooner. But they didn't bother. They had this reports coming in. They had the licence number, and did they look at the licence number and think it was, oh, the police officer won't bother with that, because obviously that's not, you know, going to happen. Now you think when you know, and maybe they didn't even know who this police officer was, but his colleagues certainly knew him, because, you know, calling him the rapist and all that, and we can talk about this a little while longer. So could he have been stopped? This was only a few days, wasn't it, before he murdered Sarah? You know, or 2 days before he murdered Sarah. Could he have been stopped? Should they have stopped him sooner? Should we take more seriously this, you know, indecent exposure? Because maybe if we had have, Sarah may still have been alive. Because this man may then have been caught. He wouldn't have then dared go out, would he, and kill someone? Because he would have been caught and he would have been investigated, you know, and, you know, and they are saying now, and the papers are saying, and everyone else that's looking at now this statistics and what's going on, is this now a gateway to other sex crimes? Yes, absolutely, it has been for years, but only now is it really coming in to the light where we can actually maybe something may be done. So listen, 1 in 10 women have been subject to indecent exposure, more than 113,000 last year, according to the Office of National Statistics and the Crime Survey of England and Wales. Now, police records show that 10,775 cases of exposure and voyeurism in this year of March 2020, while just 594 suspects were taken to court, resulting in 435 guilty verdicts. And that is the Ministry of Justice figures for 2020. God knows what they're going to be like now. So, Mystic has updated, hasn't she, now, what you should do if you are now stopped by a plainclothes police officer. Because remember, I said in my last video that, you know, God, you've got to stand there, shout, try and ring someone, you know, run away, really, you know, because if you're not sure if this is a police officer or not. Okay, we all know that was absolute bloody nonsense that the Met Police and this woman put out to tell us what to do. And to tell you the truth, why should be the onus put on us? Right? Why should it? Why should it be us? Why should we be the ones that risk, you know, being charged with resisting arrest? Why should we be the ones that are knocking on someone's door to try and get help when you've got a police officer that no one's going to believe you or run away from, to tell you the truth, because he's got his warrant card? This wasn't a fake police officer, this was a real one. So then we're going to flag down a bus in London, you're going to try and get your phone out. The minute you're arrested, you ain't using that phone. I mean, this woman should have known the own police rules. You know, you're getting arrested, hang on a minute, let me just ring up. They're going to say, no, you're under arrest. You can't ring up. Like, you can't take any medication, you can't do this, you can't do that. Because now, once you're arrested, right, you are now in their control. Duty of care lies with them. So there's a lot of things you can and can't do. So are you going to risk having a criminal record because you want to try and escape a police officer that may be arresting you legally? Because he's a serving police officer. So, I don't know. So that had to all change. Now they've come out with, okay, serving police officers, really, plainclothes ones, shouldn't be working on their own. They should be in twos. Okay, that's great. Now they're saying is, if you are arrested, the police now, the plainclothes officer will have on his phone, ring up the police station where you will have, right, someone in uniform that says to you, yes, this is a real arrest. Okay, it's better than we had, isn't it, I suppose? It's better than we had. And we have to see how that goes. But I'll tell you now, if you try and ring the police here and you're waiting for the police to come and it's really non-emergency or whatever, for them to even answer the call and take ages, they're going to turn up at your house probably 3-4 hours later. I mean, this is what's going on. One, we haven't got enough police officers anyway on our streets to protect us anyway from perpetrators like this, let alone the police or the Met saying that they had to, sort of not do all the checks and that to move this man up because they were shortage of Met police officers. Listen, if we haven't got police officers that's going to do a good job, they shouldn't be police officers at all. So the 12 that was, mates with this one that called him the rapist and everything, this man's colleagues, they should be gone. I think we can find 12 decent people that would want to be police officers, serve this country, better than the ones that they've got on their books at the moment. But I must say, right, I feel at the moment, because it always looks like I'm slating the police, and I'm not. I really don't mean to. I think, yes, in this case we've had to say what's gone on, but I think what we must do is say that at the moment they've been very transparent with what's going on. I do believe that they're trying to be more transparent with the public because the public have just about had enough. And I think we have to praise the officers, actually, that done the investigation into Sarah's case, because they really done a great job. They let nothing stand in their way. They didn't let anything stand in their way, especially that he was a serving police officer. So listen, these officers got to be, commended for a job well done, really, because this was start to finish. This case was done within 6 months, and that's only down to the investigation team. Really, these police officers that really investigated this case. So I do give credit where credit is due, and it is definitely due for them. And I'm so glad that the Metropolitan Police has changed its way of thinking around, how we as public should be treated when, especially if you're a single person, woman on your own, and you are approached by now a detective or someone in an officer who is in plain clothes on their own. They shouldn't be. They should be in twos, but if on that odd occasion that they may be, then this is what's going to happen, is that you are then going to have you're going to speak to an officer in uniform from the local police station. Thank God some sort of normal advice is coming out. Okay, as you can see that I have also put on there Lee Boxell's case, and what's coming out this Friday, as I said before, is Kevin Hicks and Reece Colin's case. It is a graphic case, so read the warning about that case, and there is trigger warnings in that as well for you. And we will be discussing them cases in more detail on next week, Murder Morning and more. So thank you for your questions. You know what to do. You can subscribe if you would like at any point. You can put the thumbs up. You can hit the bell button to get notifications of next cases coming out. I'm so happy that we're back. Catch up with you on Facebook, and you can look at any clips that's coming up. It's been really good, and it's been really good to be back for this first Murder Mornings. I hope you've enjoyed it. Speak to you all soon. Till the next time. Bye bye.